Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us this month. I want to introduce you to my co-hosts from live from the home office. Oh, wait, Mary's live from the home office, so am I. Jill Hammer is live from her home.
Hello, everybody.
I wanted to give a special shout out to all of our spiritual care leaders throughout Front Porch. Chris Craig Jones at Carlsbad by the Sea, Bev Franco at Casa de Mañana, Lawan Johnson is at Claremont Manor, James Merriam is at Villa Gardens, and Laura Mancuso is one of our guests. She's at Vista del Monte. Stephen Anderson is from Walnut Village. Elisa Burke joining us from Wesley Palms. Thank you so much. Welcome to all of our guests from other communities that we can see at the end of the event. Laura is going to lead us in a meditation that will guide us out and just close the event. I found a short exercise that gives us the opportunity to fully arrive to this meeting. I personally have never done anything like this before, but this is a time of doing things that we've never done before. Close your eyes if you're comfortable in doing so, or it's fine to just keep your eyes open and have a soft gaze downward. Bring your attention to how you're sitting and find a way to be relaxed and alert at the same time. Bring attention to your breath and notice how you're breathing. If you'd like, take some deeper, slower breaths. Let's give ourselves permission to let go of our busy day and become present together. Thank you. I really needed that. I don't know about you guys, but this has been quite the week. It's been quite the year. So thank you for taking time out of your lives, your day to join us. I'm going to introduce my co-host, my friend. Jill is our foundation executive for California Lutheran Homes. In fact, she joined our Front Porch family in 2016 at around this time of year, which I kind of found interesting as I was putting the pieces together for this event and reminiscing back on when Jill started with us. It was this cozy time of year. Jill, can you tell us about this special group of people that you meet with regularly? How did this gathering come about, and what's something unexpected that you've come away with as part of this group?
Thank you, Jen, and it's really good to see all of you. Like many of you, in fact, let me look carefully at everybody. Yes, I can tell from looking at you, even if I have not met you, that you also wear multiple hats, you play multiple roles, and that's part of being human and being part of the community. So the other part, well, I'm a foundation executive and work with several of our foundations. I also have the opportunity to support spiritual care across all of our Front Porch communities. That's something that I value greatly, and part of what drew me to Front Porch as an organization that cares very deeply about residents and about staff. And while we talk mostly about your physical health and your meals, are we feeding you properly and deliciously enough? We also care about individuals as humans, and we care deeply about how people are doing always. But this pandemic has created a new focus of really paying attention in new ways to each other as fellow human beings. The fact that we have chaplains at all but two of our communities is one of the amazing things about Front Porch and the value that's demonstrated to our residents. The idea of having chaplains is adding another professional to the team that is their role is many has many manifestations, but their primary role is paying attention to the human spirit and the spirituality of each person, residents and staff. And so they are invaluable. And I would say that there's been a practice at the organization to gather the spiritual leaders supporting our communities at least 3 or so times a year for about a day-long retreat to connect with each other, to share best practices, share what's going on, support each other's work. And what has happened since the pandemic is, of course, we can't travel to each other because we are from Cupertino all the way to Chula Vista. And so we can't get to each other. So we began to just spontaneously have a Zoom call once a week. And we were only going to do that for a little while. And it ended up, of course, we are still doing this. And I think we still do, the chaplains still share what are challenges, what are residents mostly focusing on, or what's the challenges that our residents and or staff are facing. And the chaplain team is so creative and have really amazing ways of doing things and caring for people. So we share those. I think the unexpected thing I would say is that we have found in this weekly connection that this team really needs and wants the human connection and the support and the relationship building. That we all need that. We all want that. We don't always expect it in the ways that it comes to us, but it's been a wonderful connection. Several of the chaplains have mentioned that even post the pandemic, when we can get back into routines that we were used to, we may still continue this weekly rhythm of connecting. It's been really beautiful, and I am so inspired by our chaplain. So it's my honor to introduce Rabbi Aliza Burke. As Jen mentioned earlier, Elisa is part of the Wesley Palms team. She's been with us for about a year and has been just a really tremendous asset to the chaplain team, to the staff, and to residents at Wesley Palms. She's working there full time. She started part-time and they quickly realized, no, we need her much more. So we are really so appreciate having her. And Aliza, I have a specific question I want to ask you. Let me pull it up here. And let me put on my glasses. So Aliza, you recently wrote a blog for Rosh Hashanah, and you wrote about, in particular, forgiveness and renewal. Sorry, forgiveness and renewal. For those of us who are not Jewish, what significance does Rosh Hashanah have? And for the upcoming holidays, what message would you like to share?
Thank you so much, Jill, and so nice to be with all of you this afternoon. It feels good to connect, even though it's virtually not in person. So when I wrote the blog about Rosh Hashanah, which was in the fall, I was thinking about what were some of the most important values that the high holidays had, and forgiveness is one of them. And so I addressed it in the blog itself. But we are actually closer to the holiday of Hanukkah, because Hanukkah begins December 10th and goes to the 18th. It's an 8-day holiday. and it's called the Festival of Lights. In fact, I brought a Hanukkah menorah to share with you, a Hanukkah, it's called in Hebrew. And we light additional candles each night to celebrate the holiday. And, you know, one of the values of this holiday is the festival of freedom, fighting for freedom as a nation, but also I think about personal freedom and growth. Also, during time of darkness, the need for light, and not just in the winter, but also the challenges that we face during this time of pandemic, a true need for finding hope and light in our lives. And another way of doing that is through connection. So I had mentioned to Jen some of the creative things that we've been doing. One of the things that we do to try and connect residents with one another, we started a program called Neighbor to Neighbor. And in that program, we're having residents call one another to check in on each other, to see how they're doing. So they're creating this connection, which is so very important. And I think that brings people who are feeling isolated to feel greater connection. Then Jen also asked, what creative things are you doing? So this gets me back to Rosh Hashanah and also Hanukkah. I came up with this idea of Rosh Hashanah in a bag and Hanukkah in a bag. So what we did to celebrate the holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we had a bag, and each resident who wanted received apples and honey for the sweetness of the new year. And we had these little honey containers, which were so nice. We had honey cake and also a card from a local synagogue wishing everyone a healthy, happy new year from their caring community. And those of you who, I see some people from Wesley Palms, you may not know this, but you will be getting a bag as well for Hanukkah. And we're going to have a dreidel, which is a little top, which reminds us, Nes Gadol Hayasham, a great miracle happened there, which is the miracle of the oil and the light that lasted for 8 days. And we're also going to have Hanukkah Gelt, which are these little chocolate candies that are in the shape of coins. And also we're going to have a special, each night of Hanukkah will have a 15-minute celebration of the holiday. So all the residents can light the Hanukkah menorah, the Hanukkah, and bring light into their home. So, you know, as a chaplain, my goal is to try and meet the spiritual needs of our residents. And we're doing that for those holidays, but also we had special program for Easter, and we have a special program coming up for Christmas as well. And we try and meet the religious and spiritual needs of all our residents to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Aliza. I just want to say too that Aliza has been a resource to all of our communities where we have residents who are Jewish, and our chaplain team is very diverse. So we do share things. So in the this past year, for the first time ever, Aliza was able to do a Seder event, and anyone, whether you're Jewish or not, across all of our communities was able to participate. Aliza, I don't know if there's anything you would like to share in particular about that, but that was a gift, and you are a gift to us.
Well, thank you so much. So it really felt good coming together for Passover, especially, you know, because of this, during this year, as Jen mentioned, it's a unique year. And for those of us who are unable to come together with our families the way we had in the past, it's like we create this large circle of friends in which everyone is welcome to join in. And what I love about our community is that there's such an openness to learning about each other's cultures and faith tradition. So we do a Shabbat service every Friday at 4 o'clock, and we have some both Jews and some non-Jews who participate in that as well. So really the goal in my mind is to meet people where they are, and to whether they believe in God or don't believe in God, whether they're religious or spiritual, there's always a way to connect. And that's what's really important. And that's what we did with the Passover Seder. It was a way for all of us to connect and share the story of freedom as well.
What a treat it is to have this group of spiritual leaders assembled. And we hope that you all get your cups filled as well. I would like to introduce our next guest. Stephen is our chaplain at Walnut Village in Anaheim. And we had a really cool conversation before this chat, and I learned a lot about Stephen. Stephen, you shared recently how you're not much of a phone conversation person because you prefer the face-to-face contact. I can totally relate to that. It's been a difficult time for so many. And when you're responsible for supporting spiritual care for people that you can't see face-to-face, how have you been able to meet that challenge? And how has this changed you?
Well, thank you for including me. In the Protestant world, we talk about spiritual gifts, and I have one which is the spiritual gift of brevity. So you will not get a long presentation from me. But in answering your question, let me just say this: meeting the challenge is in the eye of the beholder. I would never presume to say I have met the challenge, but I can say with confidence that with God's help, I'm doing the best that I can. And everyone knows here at the village that our primary goal at Walnut Village is to keep residents safe. And so sometimes I have to resort to what I call careful gambles. And a careful gamble is when walking down the hallways, someone comes out of their room and they have a particular issue and they just need something beside a phone call. So it's a matter of assessing the situation, making sure I have the proper protective stuff, that I don't make them sick, and then giving them a prayer in the doorway, sharing a scripture with them in the doorway, or doing something that gives them some method of encouragement. I'm super fortunate because we have a life enrichment director and a resident life director who are just an essential part of a team. And so when it comes to programs and creative things, we do a lot together, which really makes my life enjoyable and easy. But we do have some routines. And one of the routines I'm responsible for is each Sunday we have an online worship service. It includes music, celebration of the Lord's Supper, scripture, and a short sermon. But then the important part is Monday morning, because Monday morning is our COVID-19 test day, where all the residents come out of their apartments and get the nasal swab, which is not very fun. But I participate in that by taking temperatures of all the residents. So the day after Sunday, I get feedback on my ministry of mistakes. And that's where we get to laugh together. We get to hear if they listened or if I provided them a wonderful nap, whatever it is that's on their mind. And that's probably my favorite day of the week, COVID test day on Mondays. But something else that we do that has been helpful for me has been, for lack of a better term, parking lot prayers. And parking lot prayers happen like this. I'm walking outside, or I'm walking in the parking lot, or I'm walking down a hallway, and someone stops and they have a concern, and they share it with me. And at a 6-foot distance, I'm able to, with their permission, quickly offer a prayer about whatever is bothering them. And that instantaneous ability just to, without church, without formality, without any hoopla, just come before God with their need, that does a lot. And that's something I'm very thankful for. Now, what I'm most excited about, and how I've been able to meet the challenge, if I've been able to meet the challenge, goes something like this. It's residents and staff giving spiritual care to each other. It's not a program. It's just in the DNA. So let me give you an example. Dwayne is a 6'5" maintenance worker here with an equally big heart. And every morning he takes a shift on gate duty where we screen visitors, we greet visitors, we hand out masks, or we tell them they can't come in because of health issues. And so every day he sees a lot of people. Well, that's the role. But equally important is something that he does that's not stated in the work assignment, and that's Dwayne does spiritual care. He greets everyone with a smile or a joke or a question, gives the typical "how you doing," sees what their need is, and then tries to meet the need. So one day Jose came through, another maintenance person, and as he entered the gate, Dwayne knew something was wrong just instantaneously. The demeanor, his face, Jose just showed it. And Dwayne, with great pathos and a real empathy, made it easy for Jose to tell him what he was concerned about. It just so happened that at that 7:15 in the morning, his cousin was having brain surgery and he was quite concerned. So without hesitation, Dwayne just puts his arm around him, says, "Let's just pray." Then he takes the initiative and says, "There's the chapel over there, just 5 feet, 10 feet away. Why don't you go inside, take a few minutes to collect yourself and to draw some strength from it," which Jose did. And then as I came through the gate 15 minutes later, Dwayne says to me, "Chaplain, Jose just needs a visit with you, needs some words of encouragement from you." So there's an example of spiritual care happening. It's not programmed, it's not directed, it just happens. It's just the DNA. And that is one of the reasons why I love working here at Walnut Village, because the burden for everybody does not fall on my shoulders. It falls on everybody's shoulders, and it's a shared burden. So I guess what I would just simply say is this. I may be limited in my contacts, but staff and residents are making up for that loss by providing person-to-person care on their own as they're able. We do everything safe. I just want to assure you of that, with masks, social distancing, but they're doing it. They're taking the load. And many of you know we're located right next to Disneyland. And Disneyland always says they're the happiest place on earth. But I'm going to tell you right here, right now, that with the way residents and staff team together and care for each other, Walnut Village is the happiest place on earth. And it's second to no one in its caring, in its attitude, and its love for each other. It's wonderful. There I am. That's it.
Stephen, thank you so much. That's probably true at all of our communities, and we forget that every interaction that we have with each other can be a spiritual experience, and we don't necessarily need to be professionally guided. We can create it for ourselves. So thank you for that reminder, Stephen. I'm going to pass it back to Jill to introduce our next guest.
Yes, I'm delighted to introduce Laura Mancuso, serving at Vista del Monte in Santa Barbara. So Laura has had this remarkable sort of long-term experience and has been a really extraordinary resource to the team there, the staff team. She is had extensive training and experience in end-of-life matters, and so brings that into her care for people at all levels of care and all levels of spiritual need or awareness. She has supported residents and their families for quite some time, and really throughout their journey, whether they're beginning as a new resident into the fold of Vista del Monte community, or they've traversed through different levels of care and maybe now are in memory care. So she has a really rich history. And Laura is also enjoys writing and finding resources that she often shares with the chaplain team, which has been magnificent. And recently, Laura, you wrote a blog that is called "How Are You Caring for Your Inner Ecosystem?" So I love that. That really captured my imagination. So Laura, can you talk to us about the inner ecosystem and how can this help us with what we're living through right now?
Sure. Thank you for that intro, Jill. We're so lucky to have you to guide us through all that we do. I mean, I've been at Vista half as long as you gave me credit for, but that's okay. I hope to be here 15 years and more. So, yeah, I will be honest, the concept of the inner ecosystem in that article really came, the nub of it was that sometimes I was going to see residents in their apartments and I realized that they had like news going on the television continuously around the clock, or at least during their waking hours. And I'm someone who doesn't have television. I haven't for many years, like for a decade. And so when I walk in and it's like, it's jarring and it's stimulating, and sometimes in a negative way, it can be upsetting because there's so much bad news out there right now. There's so much we've been through in the past year. So I started to realize, and I think some of you know this, I had my first career, I've had 3 careers. My first career was an engineer. And so I think of systems and I think of inputs and outputs. And we as human beings, we have all these different layers to us. We have all these different dimensions. And there's inputs, there's things that happen to us, things that we choose, things that we don't choose. There's environmental stimuli. There are relationships, the things that happen to the people that we care about. But when we expose ourselves to news for many hours a day, that's really shifting our neurochemistry. That's really shifting our well-being, and sometimes to our detriment. And so I was kind of in that piece wanting to encourage each of us to take responsibility for our own well-being and likening it to an ecosystem in the environment, which is really interconnected. And it's not just the dimensions of ourselves that are interconnected, but I look at all of us within this community at Vista and within each of your communities. We used to have much more porous boundaries. There were much more people coming in and visiting, family members hanging out, grandchildren coming, spending the night on the couch. And it was very different before COVID. And now we kind of look around and this is our world. It's who do we encounter when we go for a walk around this campus or a roll around this campus? This is our whole world. And there's a tremendous amount of interdependence that's kind of just been highlighted and made visible. And, I was contacted early on after COVID started by someone in the community. They were a women's fund. They wanted to know, how can we help people living in long-term care facilities? And I think they were expecting we were needy of some material goods of some sort. What could they mail to us? What could they send to us? And, I find from the residents that I interact with, we're so fortunate. We know we're going to be housed tonight. We know where our next meal is coming from. We can walk out the door and see a neighbor. What we need is meaning and purpose. And I've just been so impressed at all the ways that I've seen residents step up to the plate on that. And we have to work with a much more smaller palette of things that we have to draw on. But I've noticed that we have, since COVID started, we've had people start inviting, if anyone can knit a 9-inch or 6-inch square or crochet a 6-inch square, they're going to make blankets after COVID is over to give to others. There are people who have made hundreds of quilts, and they used to get together with their fellow church members and do the quilting together. Now they have to do it apart, but they're still pumping out these quilts. We had someone who undertook collecting bottles that have CRV credit on them, and they're donating the money to the food bank. It goes on and on. I learned through one of these Strength of Community presentations that there is here at Vista a community garden that residents tend to, so that other residents can take flowers. Where are you going to get flowers if you're not leaving campus? Well, you can go to this community garden and pick flowers and bring them to another resident to cheer them up. And it goes on and on. We followed in Elisa's footsteps, and Craig Jones as well, in having a peer counseling program that got launched in the middle of COVID. When I see the way that residents look out for one another, they notice if someone hasn't brought in their mail, they notice if someone's meal is sitting outside the door, they alert us as staff. This is, the title of this talk is Strength of Community. This is community. It's people loving each other in these ways and that's what makes this really a good place to be right now. And so when people are down and it is hard, there is anxiety and depression. I feel it, we all feel it. But I talk to the residents and say, you know, how fortunate that you're right here, right now, not living alone in an apartment or a house, how isolated you would be. And how wonderful that you had the forethought to choose to live in a community like this. And here we are together getting through this and safely. You know, it's really a wonderful thing. So I love being here. I adore our residents. They teach me things every single day. And I'm just in awe of how they take care of each other. That's what really makes this a community.
Thank you,
Laura.
Laura.
Thank you very much. I just will point out that Laura's article, the blog that she wrote about the inner ecosystem, which is fantastic, is also in the chat feature, as well as the quilting during COVID. There's a YouTube that you could take a look, and the link is also provided. Laura, thank you so much.
We wanted to save some time during this chat for our guests to share any words of Thanksgiving that you have, any stories of joy and hope that you would like to share with us. We would love to hear it.
I just want to say thank you very much for Laura here at Vista. But the other night, she and another person put on an event called Hot Topics. And the whole purpose, or the theme of the Hot Topics was about gratitude. We had a chance to be grateful for so many different things. And I want to say, I am very grateful for Laura and for the help that she has been for me during this period of time of COVID. So thank you, Laura.
I just want to thank Mary for inviting me today. And I am so grateful that Walnut Village has taken real good care of us. And we have a chance to go out on our balconies and listen and wave at our neighbors. And we can still now have exercise outside. So I'm just so thankful that they are taking real good care of us. And I want to thank everyone. Thank you.
I am at Carlsbad by the Sea. I'm Jane Kretzmann. And just what Laura said about how fortunate we are to live in the environments that all of us live in, because we can enjoy this beautiful state, you know, while our relatives are in snow and rain and freezing cold. Yeah. And we've started having some outside exercises, which is weather conditional. But I think that's the main thing, you know, just being where we are, all our needs being taken care of. Listening to what's being said, though, it makes me think about the reason that most of us have moved to locations like this is for socialization, and that's very difficult right now. And I think that we get out, we all go to a central place for our meals, and so we do a little socializing. But I think about all the people that are not getting out, that maybe are becoming invisible, that I don't know about. I mean, I know so many people here, but there are people I don't know that I never see. And I think that that's probably another of the important functions of having a chaplain and having a core of residents who can try to connect with those people who are isolated for one reason or another.
Yeah, I'm very grateful that we did move when we did 2.5 years ago. I feel very bad for people that are moving in now. And, you know, I'm very aware of seeing somebody when I walk my little dog that I don't know who they are and I don't know where they're from. You know, we used to have a friendship table, and I would host that every Saturday night. and new people would sit, and we would sort of see what they like to do and introduce them to other people. And I'm really sad that that somehow is not happening as it did. And of course, there's a lot of other things that aren't happening as they did. I'm very grateful for being good on the computer, because if you're a Zoomer, you know, I take classes, I go to meetings, I see people from our synagogue at least once a week, but I take classes with them as well. And notice we don't have masks on, so we can read each other's faces. Whereas when I'm out in the community now and everybody has masks on, and then the sun is out, so I've got these big glasses on as well, you don't get the feel of being able to know what's really going on with that person. I think the mask, you don't get the, I don't know what word I want to use, but the essence of the person. So, you know, that's it. I'm very grateful to be at Wesley Palms. My husband now is in the memory care unit, and I can walk over, and they call me, you know, whenever he's awake and wants to see me. 10 minutes later, I'm there with or without my little dog. So that's it. I am grateful.
Can I respond to something that Sima brought up? So I just want someone to know that at Wesley Palms, we're about to begin a program to welcome the newcomers, as well as those who've been there for a while, to come together on Zoom and get to know one another. And from there, after we do that for a while, we're also planning another program in which we're going to talk a little bit more in depth as well on a spiritual level. So that is exactly what's in the works, Sima. So I'm really glad to be able to let you know, because you're right. At one time when we were all meeting in community in the dining room, we had that special table. So our table is going to be transferred to Zoom, and we're going to start taking care of that very soon.
So what we're planning, once a week, our director has something called Rumor Has It on our local television channel. And so that's where we're going to introduce the new members. We're going to have a special program where we can introduce them to everyone at the same time. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. I have I want to put Laura on the spot for a moment, because about a month ago, we spoke with you, and we're talking here about face-to-face and how things had to be transitioned online. And I know that you spoke of one group that you lead that was really affected positively by putting it on Zoom and meeting virtually. Do you remember that?
I'm probably our meditation class. And we have in Fernbrook, I can see Ann Sinclair, one of our residents. And she's one who's told me that she actually prefers to be able to meditate from her apartment and not have to venture out to another part of campus. And we've actually gone from meeting twice a week. As soon as COVID started, we went to 3 times a week that we meditate together. So we meditate every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday together. And the group has bonded and become tighter than it was when we met face to face. And it's hard to really put a finger on exactly why that is, but it's become a very important social time. I know Ellen is a big part of it too, and she often comments that our time to socialize before and after is almost as important to her as the meditation time, because there are so few opportunities to socialize. But then there's the meditation practice in the middle, and that's been really grounding for us and for myself. And we've been very grateful to be able to have this technology and have it bring us together safely to continue to meditate.
I just want to say one more thing that I forgot to say before about this Hot Topics presentation that Laura did. I want to tell you about her helper, or the person that helped her put on this program. Her name is Peggy Buchanan. Some of you may know her. Peggy Buchanan is a very vivacious and wonderful, creative, really a neat person. She really is. And the closing part of our Hot Topics, she had us all participate in a dance. It was called the COVID dance. And she used different things like washing your hands and things, or doing an elbow, or doing hugs and stuff like this. And it was just tremendous. So I'm very grateful to her and for Laura for bringing that program and that kind of thing to us. And that's important. So thank you. And I do love Laura's meditations.
We're coming into a new year. Many things have happened since last month. Many things in the world have happened, and there are some changes afoot for us. Throughout this pandemic, there have been many differences among us humans highlighted, and I hope that the lines of differences become blurred in the future, and that we create bridges to each other so that we can connect more than create differences for ourselves. So that's my hope for the upcoming year. We're going to ask Laura to lead us in a closing meditation, probably much like what she does in her own group. So we'll get to experience that. Thank you so much, Laura, for agreeing to do this with us.
Yes, absolutely. So just as we started by centering in the beginning, I invite everyone to center where you're seated, and perhaps to start to sense just where your feet are making contact with the floor and where your body is supported by the chair you're sitting on or the sofa you're sitting on. And just take a couple of deep breaths at your own pace. And I invite you to envision now that there are roots growing down from the soles of your feet, going down deep into the earth, about 3 times as deep as you are tall. Just imagine that you are actually making contact with the earth where you're seated, even though it's probably through the floor. Imagine you're right there on some soil. And these lovely roots are extending down and connecting you to the earth. And I invite you to envision that there is a source of light above you. Now, for some of us, that may be simply the sun. Without the sun, we have no food, we have no life. So it may be light emanating from the sun. For some of us, that may be the divine, by whatever name you know the divine, your higher power, God. Wherever you feel that life comes from. And coming down from this source of light, I invite you to envision that there are droplets of beautiful, warm, white light falling gently on you. You're being blessed by this beautiful white light. And in this way, while we're connected to the earth, I invite you to just contemplate what a miracle your body is. It's easy for us to focus mostly on the things that are troublesome about our bodies, an ache or pain. Those are the things that draw our attention. Just contemplate for a minute the miracle of your breath. Your body taking in oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide from the minute you're born, whether you're awake or asleep, enriching your blood and filtering out to all of your cells. What a miracle to be interwoven with the earth in this way. And that our lungs and our bodies have this ability. And just the concept of digestion. We can take food and put it within ourselves, and our body can break it down into nutrients to give us energy to function. You know, we go and grab a meal, but think of this incredible, exquisite equipment that you have to digest food and to draw nourishment from it. What a gift. And if you'd happen to get a little cut on your finger, you just assume, you know, within a few days that's going to be gone. Well, think of what it takes for that to happen. Your body has to notice. Your body heals itself. And our bodies are healing ourselves every moment of every day. They're fending off and protecting us from bacteria and virus every moment of every day. And I ask you to envision your immune system like a circle of light around you, keeping you safe. Think of the strength you have, all those antibodies, all those good nutrients flowing through your body, protecting you in this very moment, taking care of things without you even having to think about it. And let us also be grateful in this moment for the fact that we are housed. There are people who may not know where they're going to sleep tonight. We know where we're sleeping tonight. We're going to be warm and safe and dry. How wonderful that is. And even though we miss the dining room, we miss socializing with people over meals. Maybe we're tired. Someone said, I'm tired of a picnic every day. Food is being brought to us. We're nourished. We don't have to fear for where's our food going to come from. We are so blessed. And just a few steps outside our door, there are people who care about us, people looking out for us. We can push a pendant and someone will come and help. Blessings upon blessings. Let your heart be filled with gratitude for these wonderful things that we all have. We're going to do just a little more work with these beautiful droplets of white light that are coming down. As they're landing on your shoulders and on your head, I want you to envision that they are taking from you anything old that no longer serves you, and washing these things deep down into the earth along these roots. The earth can recycle this and make it into something good. Things that you're ready to let go of. There may be things you've taken on that were never really yours, maybe responsibility for things you really weren't responsible for, or blame. Let this beautiful white light wash those things away from you. Release them down into the earth. And lastly, anything that's not for your highest good. You can envision that this white light warming, gently taking from us anything that's not for your highest good, and wash it deep down into the earth along these roots. And notice how you feel right now. These feelings are available to you anytime. You can return to this place anytime. And being complete for now, envision that those roots are curling back up into the soles of your feet. You can unfurl them anytime you need to in the future, but for now, their work is complete. And we acknowledge with gratitude the source of light. We've taken it deep within us. We're whole. We're safe. We're protected. We take this light and we may go now and share it with others that we may encounter the rest of our day. So if you've had your eyes closed, whenever you're ready, you're welcome to open them and come back to the room that you're in and rejoin our community here on the Zoom call. Thank you for taking part in that meditation. And hopefully some little practices you can use there yourself whenever you wish to.